All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome in another new edition of Celtics Beat. Of course, a lot of things to get into, obviously, on the heels of what was a really good, really important win over the Sixers. We won't spend too much time really dissecting that one specifically, especially with such a big road trip on the horizon here for this team. 5 games out west, which I'm not going to say it's going to make or break the season or anything. We're still early on in the year, but it is pivotal, obviously, to the early year success of this club. I'm Adam Kaufman. I'm Valenti here, as always. Gary Washburn, good friend of the program, joining us once again. Gary, what's going on?
Hey, guys, how's it going? Good to talk to you.
I just can't believe it's December, man. How did that happen?
Yeah, I know. December 1st. Or what? Second.
See, the time's passing us by.
Yeah, Christmas is right around the corner, and then another new year. So, yeah. Luckily, gladly, 21 wasn't as tough as 20 in terms of just a lot of things. So, hopefully, we're getting out of this situation, some of the situations that we're in.
Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah, did what everybody else did: eat, watch football. That's about it.
Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously everybody's obsessed with, looking forward. It's, what I've certainly noticed, and this is just as a sports fan, this isn't unique to Celtics fans or even necessarily the Boston region, but I feel like there's a certain element of it here in this area with these pro teams, because we've become so obviously a title town over the last couple of decades that it's sort of become entitled town as well for all of the fans, that it's a lot of looking ahead, not so much, living in the moment and, appreciating sort of the process of things, because I think especially as Celtics fans specifically, people are sort of tired of the waiting and the promise and man, this looks good on paper. It doesn't translate on the court, and everything, that happened under Danny and Brad to now Ime and, a couple of all-star, borderline, all NBA caliber players on this team, trying to take everything to the next level. And yet here we are, again, early December with an important road trip on the way. And this is, it's a middling group. Evan and I were just talking about it before the show. We've talked about it a lot on past shows. Evan's saying, maybe it's got to take time. We all want to change. You talk to us about the need for change so many times on this show. Well, the change is here. Are we having trouble giving it time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an impatient. I think the fact that when you draft Tatum and Brown, and they both make the All-Star team, and then you spend money on Hayward and Horford and Walker over the last couple of years, you expect more than just the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that I'll just continue to say this: the kind of the blowing it in the bubble that might haunt the organization for a long time, because I thought that was the team that had a chance, maybe not to beat the Lakers, but to reach the finals and get on that the biggest stage with Tatum, with Brown, and show that all the hard work and all the shrewd trades and all that Danny had done had paid off. And the fact that they lost in 6, and Miami was a good team, but they were a flawed team. And I mean, if you see the Heat next year, they got swept by the Bucks in the first round. Like, it wasn't like they lost to a team was like a Warriors, or Cavaliers, where they were a power amongst, in the East for a while. There was a kind of a one-shot team themselves before they made some changes this year. Now they were better, but I think they'll regret that. But I do think there's a level of impatience when you have Tatum and Brown, and they've spent the money. The money, unfortunately, hasn't worked out. Injuries cost them Hayward, pretty much. And then we've seen the situation, we can talk about that later, with Kemba Walker now in New York, where, that unfortunately, a guy who was super durable in Charlotte and was a gamer, comes to Boston and suddenly can't stay healthy and can't get his knee right. And now he's a half the player that he was. So it's a misfortune too. It's not just Brad and Danny's fault, or it's the organization. It's sometimes just misfortune happens.
You got to be lucky to win titles. You have to be lucky. And you could go back to that bubble and say, Hayward getting hurt early, and he tried to make his way back from that and just wasn't the same player. I mean, there's just a lot of luck involved. And then look at in Miami, like Miami had against the Lakers, I believe, wasn't Dragic and
Bam went. Yeah, Bam got it. There were all kinds of injured in that series. Yeah.
So it's all the one thing, like there are generationally great teams. Like the Warriors are a generationally great team, and here we are once again with the Warriors being unbelievable. But a lot of times it's a lot of luck. I mean, look at the Patriots this year. They're running into just a whole mess of luck when it comes to their opposition missing key guys. I mean, last week, no Derrick Henry, no AJ Brown, no Julio Jones. And, it's the way it is right now. And you have to ride that
kind of game.
Right. You got to ride the wave. And it feels like, they had it like right. I mean, you go back and look at Kyrie, Hayward, Horford, Brown, and Tatum. That starting five, if you think about it today, I mean, regardless of what you think about, Kyrie is talented on the floor as all hell. That team was set up to be a really excellent team that could contend for a while. And 5 minutes into the season, it blew up in their face. So and now they're trying to pivot and regain footing. And I think people are just impatient, and it's starting to kind of drive me a little nuts, because I just think people, because of the success of the town, just expect so much constantly. And look, there was a lot of success early on in this thing, but as one of my favorite sayings is, development isn't always linear, right? It's not always like, oh, this happens, then this has to happen. No, it's not. And certain guys develop at certain paces, and now they have a whole new set of eyes in there, a new brain trust, so to speak, with Ime, his staff, Brad running the show. And so, again, I think we've sort of maybe potentially, Gary, stunted their development one more time, or put a little different wrinkle on it. Am I crazy for thinking that?
No. I mean, I think, unfortunately for Celtic faithful, their investments in the draft just hasn't worked out. Like, and Celtics fans is going to be a touchy subject, but you look at the year Desmond Bain's having in Memphis.
That would hurt the most. And it hurt because everybody in their, everybody loved Desmond Bain. Everybody loved him. And it was just one of those things where, to get off Cantor's contract, they had to trade this really great young player away. And that would have been a great draft if they would have been able to bring him in. That one hurts.
Yeah. Like,
only to bring back Cantor.
and only to bring back Cantor or Freedom.
Freedom.
Bring Freedom home.
Let Freedom ring.
Yeah, let Freedom ring. I was going to say that. There was no way we could have somehow mixed Philadelphia and Freedom last night's game. Like, I just tried to get clever with it. It was a stretch. I was upset with myself. I couldn't think of some way to bond Philadelphia and Freedom. And for young people, it's an Elton John song. Look it up. For the youngsters who are listening who have no idea what Philadelphia Freedom means. To me, it was just like, they had their chances, but you can't miss so much in the draft recently. The Carson Edwards thing, still, you could have had Matisse Thybulle, who was turned into a solid rotational piece for Philadelphia. Grant Williams has taken a big step forward, so you can't say that was not a bad pick or a bust pick. He is, not all first-round picks are going to be stars. The hope is when you choose someone late in the first round or mid-first round, that they become a starter and a good rotational player. We still don't know about Romeo Langford. Shimmy, they tried, it didn't work out. And then they wasted, for I think a couple of years, their two-way spots on players who just weren't going to help them. Taco thing was nice. Tremont Waters just never really proved to be an NBA player. And then you look at guys, there was some really bad decisions made with the development and the draft and the talent assessment that didn't give them that boost. Where now, we still don't know about Neesmith and Pritchard. Like, they both, Ime's not playing them much, and people are not, we can talk about that. That's another thing of like, well, should he play them and sacrifice minutes for Richardson and Schroeder, or did Schroeder's emergence kind of put Peyton in the doghouse, and he can't hit a shot anymore? And I mean, you got to land when you're not a team that's going to attract LeBron James and Chris Paul and all these superstars. You've got to land with your picks. I'm talking about 100%, but you got to go 60%, like rotational guys who can help you, guys who can do one thing really well. And I just think, unfortunately for the Celtics, Romeo, we still really don't know about. I mean, he's developing, but I always say, guys, the one and done thing, like not everybody's willing one and done worthy, even though they have a good solid freshman year in college. Just because you average 18 points a game in the Big Ten does not make you a good NBA player. We need to stop that. Okay. Romeo physically wasn't ready for the league. Okay. He just wasn't. And now he's in his third year where you look at his draft class and there's dudes who are really hooping in that draft class, the Morants and guys the Celtics have no shot at.
Mhm.
There's also guys who are taken behind him that have developed into established players, and we're still trying to see about Romeo. The Carson thing didn't work out, as I mentioned. Just you got to have that backup, and their bench was so bad last year. You could just tell Brad did not like the team, and you can tell from his actions when he took over for Danny, he didn't like this team, right? So yeah, there's going to be a level of impatience because I think the last few years things were botched, quite honestly botched. Not the free agency. Anyone would have signed Hayward at that point. Anyone would have brought in Kyrie for hurt Isaiah. Like all the moves free agency wise were solid. The big time. I thought Danny botched, the Tristan Thompson thing. He could have signed another shooter or two who would have helped. And he could have signed another veteran guy. But now Brad's kind of doing all that, but they're still not championship level. And I'm sure that's a level of frustration because I don't know if they can beat the Nets in 7 games at this point. We saw what they did against the Nets last week. They didn't compete.
So if you look up and down, if people will indulge me for a second, if you look up and down at what has happened so far this season, Gary, and it speaks to a lot of obviously what you've talked about, open up the year with 2 straight losses, then you win 2 in a row, then you lose 3 in a row, then you win 4 out of 5, then you lose 2 out of 3, then you win 3 in a row, lose 2 in a row, and here we are, they've won 2 straight. It all perfectly makes up the 12 and 10 of where they stand. Obviously, it speaks to why they're a middling team in the Eastern Conference. There's no sustained run of excellence. There's no prolonged rut in there. They've just been very, very up and down in these short little streaks. But I think what we knew coming into the year, we talked a lot about it going back to the offseason based on those acquisitions that they made, Horford and Schroeder and Richardson and, keeping guys like Smart and Williams and the list goes on, is obviously they were going to win first and foremost with defense. And if you look over the last 15 games after a really kind of terrible first couple weeks of the year, the last 15 games, they have averaged less than 100 points allowed. Okay. So the defensive rating has been really good in terms of just, again, raw totals. They've allowed 97 points a game over those last couple weeks, the 87 against Philly in this last game. Defense is fine. It's a top 5 defensive team. It's actually really good. But the overall question as you watch on a night to night basis, and I know injuries or health and safety protocols, it's all played into it. I get it. But the overarching question to sort of at least, allow this team to take that step, to take that leap, to go somewhere, to even just be, a top 4 team in the conference. How do they become even a middle of the road offensive team as opposed to one that is ranking, in the lower third somewhere of the NBA? What needs to happen for this team offensively for these players individually or collectively to get there?
Honestly, I don't think the offense is a major issue. Let me say this. It has been a major issue, but I just think it's a matter of shots going down. Like, if you look at the numbers, Tatum has not had a good offensive year. You don't think that's going to continue? Brown has not been himself. Brown was not himself last night. He just didn't look comfortable. He doesn't still trust his body. He has no explosion. He's usually attacking the basket. He tried a couple times and then settled for jumpers. You have to get that together. Like, Tatum's got to get himself right. Brown's got to get himself right. You would think Horford will become a better shooter. He's shooting like 29% from 3. He's usually 35%. Smart just hasn't, but Smart's not shooting a lot. I don't worry about Marcus Smart. But Schroeder, I think, has saved them. And then I think Josh Richardson is a key. I just think it's a matter of shots going down. I don't think, and there's times where Tatum still will go 1-on-5 or 1-on-3 or whatever. But for me, I think that they just have to get shots to go down. They've got to get some luck, right?
Well, I guess let me cut you off there. I'm sorry. I guess let me ask you this. Because to me, and I'm not going after you, a lot of people say this. Doc Rivers is famous for saying it. I think the whole make miss league thing,
Yeah,
and it's a matter of shots falling. Like, to me, it's really cliche. I
it
guess
is.
what I wonder from you, like, are you happy with the shot selection? If you're happy with the shot selection, then fine. Like, shots need to fall, water will find its level, all that good stuff, like you're talking about. But if you're not happy with the attempts they're taking and their offensive strategies and the way just they're playing on that end of the floor, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, I do. I think their offense can be very choppy at times. Um, Shot selection definitely questionable, but when you don't have a rim runner in the lineup like Robert Williams, like it just limits you. You see easy baskets they create with Williams in the game, like you see because he's a rim runner. He gets up, just flip the ball up there, dunk. That's easy hoops. The Celtics work too hard for the baskets. That's
Mm.
one thing. Secondly, I just think guys who have been shooters in certain situations just aren't stepping up. Like Richardson in the mid range, he's usually a very good mid range shooter. Tatum from three, Schroeder has been really streaky. So I think it's a matter of just stuff kind of leveling off. But I also think without Robert Williams and that rim runner, you don't have the easy buckets. You're working too hard for baskets. And then there's times where they stop moving the damn ball. Um, the Brooklyn game, they just stopped moving the ball. Too much ISO. And in San Antonio, they tried to put an emphasis on it. And then what happened, Adam? They missed 21 of their first 26 shots. Like that doesn't happen. Like that's just, and then they missed the last 5 down the stretch and commit like that San Antonio game was so frustrating for them, I'm sure, because that's a team they should beat. And they basically shut them down after a really, really terrible start. And then couldn't, turn off the faucet with DeJounte Murray. I think that they need to just keep Robert Williams on bubble wrap because I think he does so much for their offense. Al has got to start hitting shots. But I do think as much as it's like it sounds like a cliche, I do think it's a matter of more shots going down. But they're not going to be a great offensive team. They're not going to be a Warriors. They're not going to just score 125 points a game.
I'd settle for top 15.
Yeah, they're gonna win 108, 199, something like that. Like, but you also got to get Tatum some help. You also got to get to the free throw line more. They've got to do little like Toronto. They got to the free throw line a bunch of times. That helped. They moved the ball. That helped. I mean, but they're never going to even that game when they scored 109. Okay, that was a quote unquote good, although Tatum struggled, but he still had 10 assists. So I think they'll be okay. They're never going to be a great offensive team. They're going to have to win games ugly. Last night, hey, you know what? If you held Embiid, and we've seen Embiid go nuts on this team over the years, 3 for 17, he does not look comfortable. I got to give them credit for that, as opposed to saying, well, the offense sucked. Like, yeah, but Philadelphia's a good defensive team. Doc is a good defensive coach. So at this point, I think it's a step-by-step situation. You hope, if you're a Celtic fan, that shots start going down. And they continue to move the ball and stop going ISO Jayson.
It is frustrating because they're just not hitting open shots. I think Himmelsbach had it last week. Boston's like 27th in the league on wide open threes, which is frustrating. Tatum, Tatum gets good looks, misses sometimes. He takes some tough shots. Those go down. It's like, I don't know what's going on here. And I think Ime said something to Tatum last night. I think he mentioned this post game last night about how, he said to Tatum, hey, like, look, just think about how good you're going to be when your shots start falling. Kind of like an encouraging sort of word to him. And then Tatum goes, yeah, but I got 9 rebounds though. And that's, that's important of him staying active. Boston offensively, and I think Gary might have said it the best. And I actually kind of like the way he put it, was they work really hard for their shots. And a lot of that is because they don't have too many guys that can beat their man off the dribble. I mean, that's why I keep pounding the table for Dennis Schroeder, is because Schroeder's one of 3 guys in this team that can consistently get by his man for an entire game. And I know he's frustrating as hell. And last night, of course, we had the experience of Schroeder second to last possession of the game. Do a great job. I think he has a pick and roll with Al, waits for the defender to go back to Al, gets hit with his man, gets by him to the basket for a layup. It was great. And then the last possession goes ISO, and everybody in the building is like, what the hell is going on here? So like they have moments of, yes, that's great. Moments of, that was disgusting. And I guess I'm with you, Gary. I guess they should just start leaning into that, saying, hey, like whatever, like offensively, we're not the prettiest team in the world. Marcus Smart, is going to shoot 9 times, and we'll see how that goes. Tatum and Brown are going to have theirs, but defensively, we have a roster built of 9 or 10 guys that can really defend their ass off. And if Grant Williams is going to shoot 40% from 3 the whole season, that's great. I wouldn't count on it, but somebody else will probably go the other way to make up for that. But if they can just hone into an identity, right, that would help tremendously. If they could just say like screw it, like the whole league is all about scoring, right? Everything is about scoring more points. Why don't we be the team that doesn't care about that, but that takes a lot of pride in limiting you on your offensive possessions, right? I love saying this about the Patriots, and everybody's talked about it the last week or so, and I said it at the beginning of the season. The Pats built a team that is unlike anybody else. They are going to win by running the football down your throat. When everybody's going to be geared up for pass, they're going to run the ball. They're going to zag when everybody's zigging. Maybe this is a way, Gary, for a little market inefficiency here, to maybe keep people on their toes, right? To keep the other teams guessing. They'll be hard to play because they're unlike every other team. They want to make it a rock fight. They don't want it to be pretty. They want to make it ugly. Maybe they should lean into that more, is based on my point.
Yeah, I also think too. Yeah, like I guess the model of that would be like the 2004 Pistons or like the 2000 Ravens, a team that like we want to score enough to beat you, right? We want to defend our asses off, score 5 or 6 more points than you are, and walk away with the victory. But I also think, guys, that they need another shooter. Like they, for years, the Eddie House, the little blip of Jason Terry, like they need a 3-point shooter. They need someone who can come in, not Schroeder, someone else who can come into the game, stretch the floor, play his role, knock down 2 or 3 open threes a game, because he'll play with Jason and Jalen in the focus, and he'll be left open. Like a Danny Green type. Not to say Danny Green himself, but and those guys. I mean, Joe Harris makes $75 million. Like you can't. Oh, get Joe Harris. Like no, those guys are expensive, but.
Well, do we not believe that Pritchard or Neesmith can be that guy?
It's supposed to be Neesmith, right? But
it was supposed to be Neesmith. Now, I think when he gets his chance, he's done okay. Pritchard, I think his confidence right now is shot. He's hit 7, or sorry, I think after the Toronto game, he's hit 8 3-pointers all year. I think he's 8 for 40, something like that. Like I feel bad for Pritchard, but I just think that they have to get another shooter. Now, could it be Neesmith if they play him more? But I just think they need a knockdown veteran 3-point shooter, a guy who can come in and go, okay, you're going to shift off me because you're putting so much emphasis on Jalen and Jason. Well, I'll be right here in the corner knocking them down. I think that makes them a much better offensive team. Right now, they really don't have that. Like Grant has really turned into that. I don't know. Can you depend on, is Grant that guy, that type of guy? I'm not sure, because Grant's more of a defender. He's like a 3-and-D guy, kind of a 3-point shooter by when he's open. I don't know if you want him. Okay, Grant, just feed Grant the ball. Like, I don't think that that's his role, but I think by trade deadline, I think they'll have a better understanding of what they need offensively. Because I don't think they're far away from being a good offensive team. They might be just a player away from being a good offensive team, a guy who can make it easier on other guys to score, where you can't.
Where can we find a last few years of his career Kyle Korver? Like who? I mean, you obviously, it's not just the Celtics. You cover the entire league.
Yeah.
Who do you think brings available by the deadline that makes sense?
That's a good question. Like I thought they should have a couple years ago gone after Bryn Forbes, who had won a title in Milwaukee. Like they're low budget guys who are not like the Reddicks or the premium shooters that are good spot up shooters and again in Brentford, and we signing right back to San Antonio, guys who can knock down the three ball. And to me, that's definitely what you need. Like, and I'll have to look at the list of guys who might be expiring contracts to see if you can get a guy like that. But like the Lakers, and I'm not a big guy on Wayne, but the Lakers signed Wayne Ellington. The Warriors got Otto Porter Jr. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of guys. A guy who can just, the Lakers tried with Kent Bazemore. That hasn't worked out. He's not playing. But if you look at teams, you look at, a Garrett Temple, like a guy who is just a professional shooter, right? Who knows what his job is, comes off the bench, and just opens the floor up for guys. And that's the thing. Like Brooklyn got Patty Mills. Like that's exactly what you know what I'm saying? Just a dude who can light it up, right? And Dennis can be that guy, but he's also handling the ball. He's playing a bigger role. Don't know. You need an additional guy like that. That's the guys you have to go after. A guy who can just purely shoot. And they haven't had that guy in years.
What's really annoying is they had Garrison Matthews, who's now in Houston, shooting 42% from three on 6 attempts a game. And you mentioned like what a shooter can do for you. Look at what Grayson Allen's doing for Milwaukee right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I am not a Grayson Allen
fan. They can't stand that kid.
Nobody can, but he can play.
Right.
He's hung around enough, found his niche, and that's what you hope for the Celtics guys. Some of the rookies like the Neesmiths and or second year Pritchard, they hang around enough and find a niche and find something they do very good. Like Grayson Allen is a perfect example. Why would Milwaukee get him? Because he can shoot, right? And you saw the other game when they played and they almost beat the Celtics without Giannis. Like Allen was money that night. That's the kind of guy I think they need. And I know their budget was a little limited this offseason, and they're saving money for next summer. But I think in the trade deadline, that's the kind of guy you need to get.
With what we've seen from Brad so far, going back to him taking over, not obviously here in the regular season, but the offseason, there were this flurry of moves, and the Celtics were kind of always in conversations, from your reportings and others. Are we expecting, despite where this team is at, again, it's we're roughly a third of the way through the year, quarter of the way through the year. This team is sitting at 12 and 10, and we know what its potential is. We see what it can do defensively. We know what we believe it can do offensively. If again, going back to what we were talking about, some of the water finding its level, certainly with a guy like Jayson Tatum, who is off to an historically bad start by his standards. Is Brad looking at this and thinking, at least right now, yeah, I'm going to make a move to improve this club? Or is he still sort of, are those cards not getting pushed to the table until the offseason, thinking about next year and some of the payroll like you talked about?
I don't think he's going to do anything to jeopardize the salary cap space that max slot next summer. But yes, I think he has to upgrade this roster, because if you look at the East, okay, they've got a shot. Is Brooklyn the best team in the East? Is it Milwaukee? Those are the two candidates right now, right? Okay. Brooklyn beat the brakes off the Celtics, but they also just, they also are not playing all that well. They barely beat the Knicks the other night. Phoenix handed them their butts the other night, last week. Like, Brooklyn is flawed. Milwaukee is just getting up off the deck. I think they won 7 in a row now. So Milwaukee might be trying to get things together. But if those are the top two teams, you aren't light years away from those guys, right? You aren't just to the point of like, well, we can't compete. We'll just throw in the towel. Like, and then you've got the second tier, Washington. Okay, do you really trust the Wizards long term? We don't know. Atlanta, Miami. Miami got blasted last night at home against Cleveland. Now, I know Adebayo didn't play, but still, I think all their other guys did, and Cleveland doesn't have Sexton. So I think the East is kind of wide open here. The Cavaliers are much better than we thought. The Pacers are up and down. The Raptors can't stay healthy. The 76ers, we saw them last night. They don't look the same without Ben Simmons, and they desperately need better point guard play because Maxey has now struggled. Like, every team has a flaw. So if I'm Brad, I look at this roster. wish for good health, and get another body, a shooter in there, and I think you have a chance to make the conference finals. I think the team. Okay, can we beat Brooklyn? Like it didn't look like it last week, but I think if you take some things that you learned and try to, just try to make it the best. And as I said, I'll throw the Knicks in there. The Knicks are up and down. So everybody's got their problems in the East. There's no perfect team in the East. There is no Phoenix. There's no Golden State in the East, right? Like, so the Celtics, I'm Brad. I'm like, why not? We can't just blow off this year because we think we're getting Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine. And I said, I didn't mention Chicago. I'm sorry, Chicago. Like, they look like they're going to be something. So, but the East is crazy. But the Celtics have a chance. If you look at the East, it's not the West. The Celtics there's no 17-game winning streak in the East.
The East is, you look at the West, there's two teams at 18-3. Those are pretty great. Look at the Eastern Conference, the Celtics, who we've all been, just the online discourse has been awful. And people have been very frustrated with this team. They're 12-10. They're only 2 games out of second place, guys. So it's not like they're buried here. Nobody has been able to separate themselves at all. And so to Gary's point, it would not take a major move to elevate them into, I would say, that upper echelon of that second tier. I don't think they're Milwaukee. Milwaukee has probably the best player on the planet on it, or at least one of the top 2 or top 3 with Giannis. And he continues to be an amazing player, and amazing just off the court, how he just discovered dunking Oreos into milk for the first time. That was an amazing, that whole press conference, that 2-minute long answer was absolute gold. But I mean, like, they're not that far off. And like, yeah, Washington's not going to be the second best team in the Eastern Conference the whole year. I expect Chicago at some point to probably take that mantle, but it's not like they're super far away. So that,
one
maybe
little 4 or 5 game winning streak. Think of what that would do for you.
It wouldn't take.
Yeah, I mean, and they basically should have beaten the Wizards once in Washington and kind of wasted the game in Boston. And they led Chicago by 19 in the fourth quarter before blowing that game. So it's not like Brooklyn's the only team that in that first Toronto game that you're like, the Celtics just got manhandled. That was ugly. Like, other than that, they pretty much competed. The game in Atlanta, you could say they just couldn't hit anything. But, I think they got a shot. But like I said, shots have to go down. But also, as we talked about, another guy would help.
Do you feel like? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think yours is going to be more to deal with what we're currently talking about, because I do have a Jayson Tatum question at some point.
Well, mine was kind of bigger picture. I guess I'm not going to sit here and say that I've heard every word of every press conference so far this year from Ime Udoka, but I catch a lot of it. Obviously, I mean, you're in them, you're asking questions. Do you feel like in the very early goings, obviously, of his first head coaching experience, we're already starting to see kind of signs of him mellowing a little bit, and that's not a criticism either. It's more, an observation of, like, we were joking early in the season. I don't remember if you were with us or not, Gary, but we were joking, like, calling him, Captain Accountability when he came in, the way that he's, airing things out through the media, whether it's against his players or talking about, oh, we got punked, or quit bitching at the officials, or this about Grant, or this about Tatum and Brown, this about Smart, this about whatever. He's dialed it back a little bit, for lack of a better way of putting it. I have no idea what it's like behind closed
Not
doors.
sure, because when he said
publicly, it feels like
Adam, if you look at the San Antonio game, he called out all the guys who couldn't stop DeJounte Murray.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
We thought Smart could, and then Tatum, and then Brown, and like he called out the entire starting
That's
five.
A good point. I guess maybe I mean on the whole.
None of them could. We thought one of those guys could stop him, and none of them. Like, I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, wow, like, we thought one of these dudes that we pay millions of dollars to could stop a guy from just taking the same damn shot. But no, they couldn't, because that's exactly what happened. DeJounte did not dunk. DeJounte did not hit a three.
Yeah.
DeJounte shifted, moved, hit the mid-range, which is his game, and then did a little up and under or pump fake and got to the line or hit the shot. So yeah, I think a little bit he's toned down, but I still think like there's still kind of like come on guys, like let's do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be always your buddy. And he's a guarded guy. He loves, he's like, we really haven't gotten to know him personally. Like, there isn't a lot of like interactions like, hey, how's it going, guys? What are you up to? Like, he's, how you doing? Back to the locker room, got to work. Like, like there isn't we haven't gotten him to open up and really get to know him. So, and what I've been told, like, he's a hardcore dude. Like this is him. Like he doesn't say a whole lot. And when he says something, it's worth it. So I think that's fine. I think that this team organization needed that. They needed somebody because I think Brad was just another thing about not playing in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Brad didn't want to just have them turn against him and be like, who are you again? Like, this ain't Butler, and I think Ime's like, listen, I come with stripes. I got an NBA pension coming. I played in the league. I coach under Pop. I played in Philadelphia and Brooklyn. I game planned multiple times against all you guys. So what you going to tell me? So I do think that there's a level of confidence there, but I also think there's a level of like, listen, like guys got to hear the real brutal truth. And maybe they didn't hear the truth as much. I mean, as we see, Brad was such an ardent supporter of Kemba Walker. And then he traded him in a week. Like, if you remember, like, there was nothing Kemba could do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he fiercely defended Kemba's playing. He's got to get comfortable. The back-to-backs might hurt, like not playing back-to-backs, but he has done exactly what we've asked him, and he traded him in a week. Like, I don't know how Kemba felt about that, but I think that we need to know, and I think it's good that people know what Ime thinks of him. And that,
Has anyone tried to get that expose? I mean, you obviously being a columnist, maybe you've reached out. I don't know. Is he so guarded that he's not even allowing it, or has no one tried to write that? Like, let's get to know Ime behind the scenes.
There's people working on it, but yeah, like the usually after a while you'll get the kind of he sees you every day. Like, he's not a bad guy and he's not an unfriendly guy, but he's just, he's about business.
Yeah.
Like hey, I'm sure he's like, hey, when I win a championship, I'll be the nicest guy in the world. I am not Doc Rivers. I am not like, I am not here to charm you, and which is fine. I respect that.
Yeah, I like the way he handles himself. I don't have, there are maybe some schematic things offensively that, again, we don't even know if it's even, really on him. It could be, he's the head coach, but there are certain guys that have certain responsibilities to come up with certain offensive things. He's not like literally mitigating every single thing that they do. He has other guys in his staff to help him with that. I've enjoyed the Ime, the Ime era so far. And we were talking with Dan Shaughnessy 2 weeks ago. Part of that, like, his attitude, like, they should never lose that. Like, these guys need reminders sometimes. That's tough to hear. Like, in anybody in life that's been somewhat successful probably has gotten some pretty harsh criticism along the way, and they've responded to it in a positive way and have turned their something around to become more successful. That's all that is. And I think with Ime, maybe, Adam, to your point, maybe he's learned his team a little bit more, and maybe even like, okay, maybe I can't be, so brash about certain things. Maybe I myself have to turn it down a little bit. But in certain times, like, yeah, they have to get their ass chewed out, or they have to be talked to, or like, look, we couldn't stop DeJounte Murray. Why beat around the bush? Like, Pop doesn't really do any of that either.
No.
If Marcus Smart beat him like a drum over and over and over and over again at the end of the game, you bet Pop would say pretty much the same thing. Like, Pop would call everybody out, and nobody would have a problem with it because he's earned it, obviously, throughout his career. But like, I don't mind that at all. I think Ime's been fine. I don't have many issues. I mean, there are people who are like, oh, from a offensive standpoint, like, his stuff is bland or whatever. I'm like, well, like, you also don't understand there's a defense out there that's reacting to their offense. And sometimes defense makes a good move or there's a good trap over here, or like there are things happening on the court that aren't always going to happen in your favor all the time, and the other team deserves credit for that. So like some people I get on email all the time, I just don't totally understand. I think, Gary, it's been fine so far, and are they perfect? No, but
No.
there's a different attitude that I enjoy. And I think most people would agree that at least there seems to be some accountability up and down the roster, unlike maybe certain times in the past. But I do want to get to Jayson Tatum, though, because Tatum's been lightning rod a little bit so far this year. And you had Brad on Toucher and Rich this morning talking about some of the quotes from the anonymous GMs and coaches and scouts, which I hate. And one of them talked about Jayson not being a winner, and he doesn't want to win enough. He wants to win on his own.
He wants to win on his terms.
Yeah, it's like the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. And so like,
well, first of all, who doesn't want to win on their own terms?
Exactly. Everybody wants to score 40.
No, I want to win on your terms. Like everyone wants to win the way they think they want to win.
Right.
I just don't get that from Jayson. Like, here's the thing. I do think, Jayson knows he's gifted. I think Jayson understands how important he is to the team. And of course he wants to be a star. Nobody goes into this business of basketball or journalism or whatever and says, I want to be really average. Like, no one says that. Like,
striving for adequate.
If you do, you got a really bad attitude. And some people are average and are okay with being average. Like, literally, no one goes into the game like that. Of course Tatum wants to be great. But there's the Tatum haters who are like, if he says, I want to be great, oh, see, he's not a team guy. All he cares about is old JT. It's like, he's told me I want to win championships. That's all that matters here. He told me that this summer. That just went right over people's heads. And it came to like, well, all he does is talk about himself. Like, I just think there's going to be people that I get a lot of emails about Jayson. And he doesn't say the team. He always talks about himself. Like, he gets asked about himself and he gets asked about the team. And like, I think we should learned a lot about Tatum last. He had 10 assists against Toronto, 16 rebounds against Philadelphia. Like, he's not shooting well, but he's learning how to do other things. And I think I've seen that progression this year. Like, is his numbers up high? No, but he's not afraid to pass like he was, or he's not doing the Kobe thing, the dribble, pump fake, fade away. Like, he'll do that less often. He still does it on occasion, but I think it's kind of like sad in a sense that you have this guy who's a 23-year-old star and everyone is just picking at him. Like, Rafael Devers is 26, right? Like it happened. It takes time. Devers turned into a star. Devers is older than he is. Like, Bogarts, you look at other stars in this town besides, and shoot, he might be younger than Mac Jones. I don't know how Mac Jones. How old is Mac Jones? 23?
23? Yeah.
Okay, so they're the same age. And everyone's ripping Tatum like he's just like terribly finished. He's finished product. He hates he's all about himself. Like, my goodness, like, you realize how young this guy is, right? Like,
yeah.
I just think, and he's trying to accept the responsibility of being the franchise player. And I think that's a process because there's no Gordon anymore. There's no Kyrie and there's no Kemba. There's no other guy you can look up to and be like, okay, you're a max guy too. Like, it's just him and Jalen. And he makes more money than Jalen. They didn't max Jalen. So to me, I think that Tatum wants to win and he wants to win his way, but I think his ways will change once. And I think once he sees that he can do other things and get that triple-double and help and get a steal and play good D, I think he'll round into that polished player. Durant wasn't always like that. Like, we look at the guys, Harden for sure. You want James Harden at 23? That dude was partying on South Beach during the finals or whatever when they were like, he was in the streets after losing NBA Finals games when he was 23. Just imagine if Tatum did that. Like, now, you want these guys take time to develop. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a time they come into the league at 19. Most of these guys are just totally not ready, even if they got enough game. And it just takes time to develop into that superstar and that guy who's all accountable. Why do you want to be like Larry Bird? Like Larry Bird was like that from jump. Like I don't know, but I'm assuming.
23 when he got in the NBA.
Yeah, 1979. Larry Bird was just the consummate leader, team player, superstar, all around great guy. Like, come on, he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Bird was, but Bird took time to develop. McHale, like all those guys take time. Like, I just think I see the progression in Jayson over the years. And yeah, do I think he's got a little too one-on-one heavy, especially during the bubble when he was taking those contested 27-footer that game one against Miami, which I think was probably one of the most regrettable games of the Brad Stevens era when they blew that big lead and Tatum got blocked at the rim by Adebayo and took the terrible 20. Like, yeah, there's been some low points, but I also think the dude has turned into, like, you want Markelle Fultz? I'm sure Orlando will trade you Markelle Fultz for Tatum. Like, you know, what is it that you want? You got a dude at 23 is already a 2-time All-Star, and people out here want him to be like, what do you want him to be? Like, it's working out so far. That's what I think.
I just look for anybody wondering, because if I were listening, I would be doing the same thing. Jayson Tatum born March of 98 and Mac Jones September of 98. So a couple of 23-year-olds just a few months apart. But yeah, like you said, Tatum's been in the league for 4 years. Mac Jones just got here. And so it definitely alters people's opinions. We've gone on for almost an hour, which I told Gary we weren't going to do to him today. So we're going to get out of here. This has been another edition of Celtics Beat. Gary, thanks for hopping on with us as always.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Evan and I will be back next week. Big 5-game trip for the C's. It starts as we sit here tomorrow night in Utah. We'll see how it goes. See ya.